Good afternoon. I'm Deborah Young, the CEO of the RegTech Association, and I would like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land that we are meeting on today and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and to offer, all of our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander friends a very warm welcome who may be with us today. And a big warm welcome to members and special guests of the RegTech Association. I'd also like to start very proudly by saying that we have a new sponsor for this series in Austrade. Austrade will be supporting our series of global showcases for the next 12 months. So that's a very exciting development. So thank you very much to Austrade for their support. And here we are at the RegTech Edge showcase for AML, CTF and sanction screening. Before we get underway today, I wanted to just give you a few key insights from the research report that we just published a couple of weeks ago. And if you haven't seen that, you'll find it on the homepage of our website. It's called RegTech Industry Perspectives Report 2021. And what it has shown is that during the pandemic, this industry has been extremely resilient. We have added jobs to the economy rather than taken them away. We've seen an uplift in professional investment into the sector. And the time to value metrics, and by that I mean the time taken from first conversation to full deployment, has actually decreased by 23% since 2019. So we're getting the solutions faster into the institutions that so badly need them. There's a strong trend from those institutions to buy rather than build, which I think is great news for all of the RegTechs on the line today. And there's more buyer appetite across the board for all kinds of RegTech solutions. But one of the things that the research did highlight is that they've honed in on a track record in the RegTechs that they are looking at. And so today we'll see a bit of that track record unfold. We have 180 organisations from 17 countries registered today, and that's regulated institutions, government, investors, and of course our fantastic RegTechs. I wanted to particularly call out our presenters for today, and that's Arctic Intelligence, CV Check, First AML, Frankie One, Jade Third Eye, Lab Group, and CloudCheck. Now, you may have seen the housekeeping slide pop up and down, but I'll just remind you, if you need to be reminded, we are recording today, so nobody will miss this. If I could have all mics and cameras off, unless you are presenting, thank you very much. We're just trying to preserve the bandwidth. All questions today will go into the chat. And then what I'm going to ask the presenters to do is once they have finished their presentation, please jump onto the chat and answer any questions that come your way. Towards the end of the program today, I will invite everybody to turn their cameras on and their mics on and come and join us for a bit of networking at the end. You will also see from time to time during the proceedings some polls pop up. We'd really appreciate it if you could answer those. They won't be necessarily about the subject matter today. They're just general range of feedback that we're looking for from the industry. So please feel free to complete those. I just wanted to take a moment to talk about how important it is that this industry comes together to collaborate and support not just us, but one another in this work that we are doing to create a safe place to showcase the potential of RegTech. And it's never been more important than right now. And so I especially wanted to acknowledge and call out our next speaker, Tim Phillips. So some of you may remember Tim with his former hat on as the global head of analytics and head of forensics for Deloitte. He was based in Singapore. But Tim also was a former director of enforcement at ASIC, which I didn't know. We just had a chat about that. And he also sits on the board of an Australian RegTech firm. But what I wanted to point out in particular is that Tim was an early supporter of the RegTech Association, and we are very grateful for the early support that he gave us in helping us to lay the foundations for the success that we have achieved so far. I couldn't think of a better person to come and help us introduce this topic, because AML CTF is one of the top 3 of all RegTech solutions of the members that we have. You know, his early support really is very much appreciated by me and by all of the members of the RegTech Association. So thank you, Tim. And to our presenters today, please don't go over 5 minutes, because Tim's going to sound some kind of creative warning at 4.5. And I'm only saying that if you see my camera back on, you'll know that you're in trouble and you need to move on. So without further ado, I would like you to offer a very warm welcome to Tim Phillips. Thank you so much, Tim.
Thanks, Deb, and for that overly embarrassing introduction. I appreciate it, and I've had a lot of fun working with you and your team, and where it's got to. RegTech's an amazing space to work in, so I love it. Hey, I just wanted to pass on a few personal views really quickly before we start to move into each of those. I work both on the board of a RegTech in Australia who's making some good ground, but I also work with a bunch of friends and former colleagues around the globe working with new startups and RegTechs, and we see a lot of what's happening out there right at the sort of the beginning, those very early days. And I'd confirm what your research told us. There is a really significant shift to RegTech focus, and perhaps away a little from FinTech, which is seen as being more mature. So a lot of the funders that we talk to around the globe are all starting to ask questions about RegTech and where it's heading and its level of adoption, and frankly struggling to work out what's good and what's not. So there's a lot of opportunity on the horizon, perhaps not immediately today, but certainly coming. One of the other pieces that really sort of reminds me about focus is that it's quite often a little about the pieces of the puzzle, not necessarily the entire proposition. Now, I know we've got Frankie One talking to us later, and they've really done a fabulous job of enablement across a variety of tools, but buyers, particularly the big financial institutions, in my experience, are looking more recently to buy rather than build, as you say, Deb, but also really focused on unique products that do specific things for them and integrate well. So a lot happening in that space. Cloud tools, SaaS environments are becoming much more acceptable. So hopefully we'll all experience less of the 12 or 18-month sales cycles and bring that down to something much more reasonable. But my experience with my listed company here in Australia is that it's replaced by security assessments and many layers of security assessment. So a lot to think about as you're building out your tools. In terms of the domains, fraud's making a huge comeback. Now, I know we don't often talk about that. We're very focused on KYC and AML, but I can tell you that the big institutions are struggling with commercial lending fraud, largely as a consequence of COVID, but also really sort of a lot of examples of financial manipulation, and that's having a big effect on their lending portfolios. So don't forget that when you're thinking about the financial crime group of domains. KYC, everyone talks about it. It's at a maturity point. It's really shifting now to genuine AI capabilities. And when I say genuine, I mean not just the use of the two letters, A and I put together, but actual real capabilities to automate, do diagnostics, do retrievals, work through that process. So there's a real focus in that area, especially in things like beneficial ownership and those really difficult capabilities. And the last point I'd make before we move to hear from our friends today is that sanctions has finally got some territory in Australia. Around the world, it's had a good lot of activity, and there's been many prosecutions and so on. But in Australia, it's been the poor cousin to AML and reporting regimes. But it's now making a comeback, or it's actually appearing on the agenda. And there'll be some real enforceable activity, and there'll be a real focus on frameworks. So Sanctions, which doesn't feature highly in Australian legislation, is going to be there for everyone's interests. So that's my observation. It's a great time to be part of RegTech. It's really going to move forward. Fintechs will always be there working with consumers, but institutions are really starting to think about where to go next. Don't just think about banks. Superannuation and insurance are big players in that space too. Look, I think you've heard enough from me. So with that, let's get to the first presenter. And these are great friends of mine, Arctic Intelligence. Ali, I'll let you introduce yourself, and over to you. Your time starts now.
Tim, thank you very much for that. And we are a business that Tim knows very well. So look, Arctic Intelligence, we are Australia's RegTech of the Year and RegTech Exporter of the Year. So very proud of that. So thanks for that. And it's going to be tough because there's a tough field emerging in the RegTech space, as we've heard already. So Arctic Intelligence, if we can go to the next slide. So essentially, we are a compliance software provider and focusing on financial crimes. There's a real proliferation, a real desire for compliance professionals around the world to move from a spreadsheet-based risk assessment solution to a software solution. Spreadsheets definitely fulfilled a fantastic purpose and still do in many areas, but probably not providing the level of sophistication, quality assurance, auditability, and all the other things that a software solution provides. So what we've done is, across a range of financial crime risk domains, leading with anti-money laundering and counterterrorism financing, assisted in that proliferation, in that migration from spreadsheet-based assessments to software solutions. So in every jurisdiction, whether it's the Hong Kong Monetary Authority or the UK regulator or the Australian AUSTRAC, there's a requirement for businesses, for reporting entities, to conduct an enterprise level, a business level risk assessment whenever the size, nature, or complexity of your business changes. So if your revenue grows materially, if you enter a new market, you release a new product, you're required, under the Financial Action Task Force principles, you're required to go through your business and test controls, test risks, and give yourself a residual risk rating. And then up over the sort of last 10 to 20 years, that's been predominantly done by spreadsheets, and that's now slowly but surely being replaced, and quite quickly recently, by software. So we're very proud to be at the pointy end of that process. We've replicated that. So we started with anti-money laundering. We are now replicating that to fraud and sanctions and anti-bribery and corruption, as well as modern slavery and human trafficking. So a range of areas that fall under the financial crime umbrella. If you need to conduct an enterprise level assessment, chances are you're either doing it by spreadsheet or there's not many other ways of doing it. And so we're providing a sort of a more efficient, effective way of doing it. Next slide, please. I'm very conscious of time. So like I said, very proud of our awards. There's really two big hubs as we see it for RegTech, Australia and the UK. We're proud to have a presence in both. We're proud to be getting awards in both and growing clients in both. So obviously predominantly in Australia, Asia Pacific, our client base, but we've got quite a few clients and growing in the UK and Europe. Next, please. So this is a bit about, and maybe you'll get a copy of this. I hope they will, Tim, but I'll ask you to confirm that. So this is basically, why would you move from a spreadsheet solution to a software solution? And it's all the things you'd expect: the auditability, the efficiency, but also how do you maintain a spreadsheet? When AUSTRAC or Hong Kong Monetary Authority releases new guidance, how are you aware of that? How are you made aware of that? How do you absorb that quickly and understand how that affects your programs and risk assessments, and then update those accordingly? A software solution, independently hosted, independently maintained, does that for you. And like I said, it's the same across all domains. And one of the real exciting things about software for AML, about having hundreds of businesses around the world using our software for AML risk assessments, is it's allowed us to provide industry benchmarking data. So we were getting inquiries from many institutions around the world asking us about, can we provide some data, because essentially no one has it. So what we've done is we've aggregated and anonymized that data and released it. I'd encourage you to log on, download your report, and compare yourself to your industry peers. Next slide, please. And again, it sort of just builds on a range of what I've just spoken about, but whether it's AML, sanctions, or fraud, or anti-bribery corruption, chances are your board, your internal compliance committees, investors, regulators are asking you, what is your residual risk rating? Where are your controls weak? Because no one's got perfect controls. Where are your risks high? So you should have readily available answers, ideally in a regulator grade or a board grade report. Next, please.
Ali, you're just down to your last 20 seconds or so.
I'm pretty much finished. So I think that's all. If you want to go next slide. That's a bit of a slide which demonstrates the breadth and depth of our clients, whether you're a major bank or foreign exchange or a fintech, a bunch of fintechs that are increasingly using us, or internationals. And then the next slide, I think, does something pretty similar. And that's it. Really, on that note, Tim, I think I'll pretty much summarize what we do in a 5-minute pitch. Back to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Ali. Much appreciated. There'll be an opportunity for questions later, to fire off any questions you have. I think there'll be a chat site down the side of the page quite soon. Thanks, Ali. Hey, with that, why don't we move to Petra from CV Check? Petra, are you on mute?
Hi, thanks for that. So I'm fairly new to CV Check and fairly new to the RegTech space, so I plead patience from everyone. So if we could go to the first slide, please. So who is CV Check? And hopefully we have the brand recognition where people actually recognise CV Check as being one of Australia's leading background screening companies. But a little bit of what I'm going to talk about today is we completed an acquisition in April, which has extended our offering to customers from being point-in-time background screening to managing whole of life cycle of people compliance. So employees, vendors, visitors, customers, it's not just point in time. What is critical is that an organisation ensures that their people stay compliant at all times. So next slide, please. Okay, so a little bit more about us. So we are proud to deliver services to a lot of sensitive information organisations, law enforcement agencies, courts, government departments. So this means that we need to ensure security of data. So all of our data is stored locally. We're ISO accredited. We're an accredited provider of DVS gateway services. Our SaaS software is architected with event-driven architecture, which is effectively a sister of the block in blockchain technology. And all of our services are delivered from our Australian jurisdiction. So if I could, next slide, please. So AMLs, now obviously there's a lot of participants here who are experts in the domain of AMLs, but we're finding that there is just rapidly increasing demand for AMLs, not only with respect to the Act and for those position types, but for a whole range of individuals, including those contractors and vendors to financial organisations. So if I could have next slide. In addition to the background screening, we are getting more and more demand for the KYC, and again, not just point-in-time KYC, but maintenance of that information on an ongoing basis. So again, looking at the Corporations Act, anti-money laundering, but if I could ask you to move to the next slide. What we're finding is that KYC clients are not only looking for integration to our DVS, but particularly where there are large and complex financial transactions, they are wanting very in-depth background checks. So not only the AML, but all of the business interests, credit history, financial, regulatory, obviously the PEPs. So what we're finding is that that is growing very significantly. And again, not just point in time, but ongoing maintenance of that status. If we could have next slide, please. So the acquisition that was undertaken in April, if I draw your eyes to the bottom right-hand corner of this slide, the transaction that we undertook was to transition us from being that point-in-time background screening to ongoing maintenance of a person's compliance status in whatever way they interface with our organisation. So our new technology, which is a technology called Cited, enables organisations to set up a whole range of business rules, whether they be location-specific, project-specific, position-specific, timeframe specific, enables an organisation to set up those rules within that platform, and therefore it doesn't matter at whatever stage of that person's life cycle with your organisation, whoever is responsible for things going wrong can sleep at night because they know that that compliance status is being maintained. It's not just being undertaken on the entry into the organisation. So that's what we see as being a massive growth area, not point in time, for the full life cycle. So if I could ask for the next slide. You mentioned earlier about APIs. We recognise that integrating with organisational systems is a critical capability. We talk a little bit around applicant tracking and HR information systems. If I could get you to move to the next slide, please. So here are all of our, or not all, there are a range of our integration partners. However, what we are now seeing is that we are getting demand for integration with a whole range of systems. E-commerce platforms, you mentioned insurance, so insurance management. We're seeing things like gate access systems. So unless we actually know that you're compliant, you can't enter our server room. So, so we are now integrating with all of those systems, gate access systems, etc. Here's a range of logos of organisations that trust us to handle that information and background screening for them, and thank you very much for your time.
That's
happy
great,
to take
Petra.
any
Thank
questions.
you. That was almost to the minute, almost to the second. Well done.
I was well drilled. So Marianne, thank you.
Okay, let's move to first AML to Andrew Jackson. So Andrew, over to you. Your time starts now.
Thank you very much, Tim. Yeah, so for those who don't know me, my name is Andrew Jackson. I'm the country manager here for First AML in Australia. And we are an end-to-end AML onboarding solution, but we specialize in the complex side of onboarding. I think trusts, Tim, you mentioned beneficial owners, companies, those types of entities. Next slide, please, Hong. Just a little bit about us. We're now probably 90 plus employees, I'd say, based in Auckland head office and in Australia here. The three founders on the screen, they've been working in AML. They were in commercial corporate finance. They felt the pain of doing all the KYC checks. They founded First AML to alleviate that pain. Next slide, please. Some of the brands we work with across New Zealand and Australia, a range of market verticals, and some that we're really, really proud to work with for a long time now. Next slide, please. So we all know there's quite a lot involved in AML KYCing, but there's far more than just EIV, right? It touches multiple teams, especially when you're talking about complex onboarding. And there's a huge knock-on effect for businesses, whether that's they struggle to grow because they can't onboard quick enough, or they're providing a subpar customer experience. Next slide, please, Hong. These are the three key problems, therefore, that we solve at First AML. Like, there's a loss of productive time. You're verifying, you're re-verifying, you're collecting all this information, often not done by AML experts. And frankly, there's better things that your staff can do than just continual document gathering. Number two, it's a repetitive, slow, inefficient process. And frankly, it doesn't lead to a very enjoyable CX for like your customers, because they've got to go through so many steps and there's often multiple tools involved. And there's a lack of integrated solutions. We're taking care of everything as opposed to having a tool and then maybe a compliance team who comes in and out partway through the onboarding process. Next slide, please, Hong. The top part of this visual, this is what a standard onboarding process might look like for a more complex entity. And you'll find that it's not only slow, but it's also quite confusing and heavy on staff. There's often a lot of unsecure areas in there. I mean, who works out the entity structure and all the ownership parts? Collecting the documents, what do you have to do to follow up? What happens if someone goes on holiday? Where does that get to? Does the onboarding slow down? Are there dropouts because the onboarding process is just too hard? It's a very manual process. And then where is the documentation stored and how is that provided internally to be approved? Is it done by email or is it done by hard copy? So the bottom side of that is how we do this. So how it works, very simply, the say a frontline staff would log into our platform. They would say, we'd like this entity verified. Here's one person's contact details. And our team of expert analysts will go and gather the information that cannot be automated. They use smart forms. So we're only asking for what's required. And this is based then on the risk profile of our client. We will provide the case for approval. Everything is done in one place. Next slide, please, Hong. This is head-meltingly confusing. One of our clients didn't realize what their process was like until they mapped it out. Multiple touch points, different approval processes depending on which way you came into the maze. And to say it's confusing is an understatement. Next slide, please, Hong. And this is what we transformed it into. So new customer comes to frontline staff, either via our API or manually into the platform. They request the entity be verified. Our analysts take care of everything. They are experts in this, including international transactions. Many of them speak multiple languages, so we can handle anything coming from anywhere pretty much. And then, as I say, based on the risk profile, we supply that case back to the customer for approval. That can be done by a designated approver. And then if approved, it can either sit in our secure system or that can be passed via API into their CRM system. Next slide, please. Final piece I want to touch on is our network effect. This is another differentiator. Every case we verify, we do it to a high level of compliance standard, and therefore we've built a network effect of over 350,000 pre-verified consumer and business entities. That means if Bank A verifies somebody and Bank B also works with us, we ask for consent from the entity. We do a quick check, PEP, sanctions, make sure it's up to date, and we can supply that complex onboarding information almost immediately, as opposed to having to go through days and days. And we've now found that 25% of Australian firms we onboard are already in our database. Next slide, please, Hong. Just a couple of the technical and security pieces of information. And the final slide just has a couple of really useful blog articles. Obviously, you can go through to there and check out anything more about us. Thank you very much.
That's great, Andrew. Thank you. And again, sticking incredibly well to time, so well done.
Appreciate it.
Our next presenter is Patrick from Frankie One. Patrick, over to you.
Thanks a lot. Can you hear me now?
Can.
Excellent. Yeah, thanks a lot, Tim, and thanks everyone for joining us today. And thanks, of course, to RegTech Association for continuing to put on such high quality pandemic-proof events. Next slide, Hong. So just a quick kick-off. Frankie One's an Australian company. We founded in Melbourne in 2017, and we're a long-term member of the RegTech Association. Just a quick origin story. From the outset, the founders of Frankie One originally planned on being a neobank, and of course, like every other neobank in the preliminary stages, they discovered a problem that probably many of you face as well, and that is it's very difficult to build a KYC onboarding platform for new customers, particularly when it's not your core business. So the founders quickly realized there's a gap in the market to provide an outsourced data agnostic onboarding platform, platform as a service for financial institutions. And as Deb and Tim both mentioned in their intros, those in the build or buy decision stage is who we talk to most often. So the founders pivoted and they ended up focusing on KYC onboarding, and Frankie One was born. So we're now laser focused on solving this problem for our clients. Our head office in Melbourne, we have an office in Sydney. We've also recently launched in the States, in Seattle, I think it is. We've got about 80 plus financial institutions using the platform across 46 countries. Some of our clients are up there on the right, you can see, including 3 of the Big 4 banks, several major buy now, pay laters like Afterpay. Most of the neobanks in Australia, given our origin, most of them are using Frankie One. We've got cryptocurrency exchanges, payment platforms, and then a lot of fintech and regtech startups, of course, as well. So Frankie One's basically data-driven company. We're customer-centric, and for us, it's all about the customer experience. Next slide, thanks. This slide gives you a simplified overview of what the fraud and identity vendor market looks like and how Frankie One goes about solving for it. As you can see, we've carved the onboarding process into different categories of vendors with multiple global players servicing each category. Frankie One's an API aggregator. So we integrated into over 350 or more third-party data sources and vendors. And every new provider that we bring on becomes available to our entire client base. So from the outset, we know that you're trying to work out who's the best and who best fits your specific needs and who you should connect with. The challenge is not only working out who the best fit is for today, but also who's the best fit for you in, say, 2 years from now. And there are so many great RegTech solutions in the market, and they all solve for a point solution. Frankie One kind of brings them all together for you in one API, in one orchestration layer, and a single view. So we help you connect now while giving you the future proofing to evolve as the tech changes, or as your target market changes, or as new vendors emerge, or to launch into new jurisdictions. Next slide, thanks. So the previous slide was at the vendor level. This slide's at the module level. On the left there, you can see everything that happens in the first couple of minutes, or preferably a couple of seconds of onboarding. And on the right is everything that's ongoing. And everything at Frankie is powered by the decision engine. So Frankie One is the orchestration layer that helps you build tailored workflows using multiple vendors for risk-based onboarding. You have certain modules that you may wish to use day one, some that you might need in 6 months' time, say, and some that you might never need, which is fine. Our goal is to give you access to the full menu, and you choose what you wish to use, when you wish to use it, and be free to change your mind as your needs change. Next slide, thanks. So Frankie One has 3 core, value propositions for our clients. First, on the left there, and foremost, really, we're an integration hub. So connect to one and get many, gives you the choice and flexibility. Secondly, in the center there, as I mentioned before, at the core of what we do is the decision engine, or the orchestration layer, to empower you to do risk-based real-time decisioning. This means that you can onboard high-risk customers in one way, low-risk customers in another. And if a vendor's down, you can auto-fail over to another vendor. Or if you have, for example, a Chinese national, you may wish to onboard them differently than a New Zealand citizen. And finally, on the right there, Frankie provides a single view of the customer, or a single point of truth. And that allows you to manage the entire onboarding process via dashboards, case management, exception management, manual onboarding, auditing, and ongoing monitoring. And next slide, thanks. At the end, perfect. Thanks everyone for listening. Thanks a lot to RegTech for your ongoing support. And if anyone wants to learn more, just hit me up on LinkedIn or my email address there, patrick@frankieone.com. Thanks, Deb and Tim.
That's great. Thanks, Patrick. That was excellent. Jen, I think you're next up with Jade Third Eye. Thank you.
Hello. So I'm Jennifer Hale. I'm a Senior Product Manager for Jade Third Eye. Jade Third Eye is our software as a service product, and we look at automating key components of financial entities, AML, CTF programs. Do you want to go to the next one? Just a bit of background on us, as we're somewhat newer to the market in Australia, but we're definitely not new to AML compliance itself. So we're headquartered over in New Zealand. I'm in Christchurch right now, and we've been serving customers both here and in the UK since 2012. But we have been more focused on growing in Australia over the last couple of years. So we've invested in a local support team, an office in Sydney. We've got some automated AUSTRAC reporting now, and really just becoming much more involved with local partners in organisations to make sure we understand Australian customers and having that driving forward how Jade Third Eye evolves. Next one. So just a bit of an overview. We do look after quite a range of different financial entities, from banks, building societies, mortgage and lending funds, foreign exchange and casinos and gaming, and really quite a range of customers, not just in sectors, but in size as well. So we have smaller customers ranging from just a few thousand transactions per year, whereas others have millions of transactions per year. Next one, please. So the first element of automation is our rules-based monitoring system, looking at transactions, accounts, and customer behavior. So we're trying to replace risky manual processes or systems that are more limited to identify suspicious transactions faster, more reliably, and efficiently. And with almost a decade of experience now, it means that we have a really extensive rule library and can help guide you to the best practice of what rules are run for your type of business. But we know that new risks can arise quickly, regulation changes happen, businesses itself might change, your risk profile, or maybe you're adding new services. So really a key benefit is flexibility. So in Jade Third Eye, you have direct control over the rules, so you can modify existing ones or create new ones yourself and test them before putting them live to make sure you're getting the right results. And next one. So the next is ongoing customer screening and due diligence. So you can screen against Dow Jones or the WorldCheck watch lists. And again, we've really made it configurable and accessible for users to directly control how they want to screen customers in line with their risk profile. So they can control the settings themselves, the scope of the screening, how often it takes place, which lists are screened against, minimum thresholds for matches, and quickly add new sanctions lists or remove ones. Next slide. So automated reporting. So of course, regulators require quality reports in somewhat tight timeframes. So with centralized data and automation, we're really helping you submit those quality reports faster and with less effort. You can use all the data that's available to Jade Third Eye to populate the reports and have these submitted manually or automatically through our direct integration with AUSTRAC makes submitting even easier. And we've also got tracking integrated into our dashboard, so you can quickly see how long reports have been in the system to make sure they are getting submitted on time. Next slide. And then we've really built Jade Third Eye for visibility, transparency, and auditability to monitor and prove compliance really easily. So every action, every change is fully recorded for auditing purposes. And we have a number of dashboards, so you can see at a glance the progress of alerts and actions and the performance of the team to make sure that you are meeting your obligations. And last one. So again, we have built in that flexibility and control to evolve your system over time, but we have included in our standard pricing is unlimited local support. So you don't have to worry about unexpected costs or having to factor in professional services as your needs change over time. Although our teams are always available to help answer questions or make changes, we also include a dedicated annual review to look at your system, your rules, how they're functioning, how we can optimize that to reduce things like false positives, just to make sure that you are as efficient as possible. And as part of our product team, we actually have an ACAM specialist who helps us with consulting with customers, can help with guidance, and helps us drive the development of the product. We also have a dedicated customer portal for submitting product ideas and feedback. So we're really dedicated to continually evolving the service to not just match the regulations, but the needs and the wants of the customers as well.
Jen, that's oh, look at that, perfect timing. How about that?
Great.
Jade Third Eye, that's an interesting name. Is that new?
Sorry?
Is the Third Eye addition to the name Jade new?
No, Jade's been around as a company for a very, very long time.
Yep.
Many more decades.
Oh, that's good. Okay.
But yes, Third Eye is the relatively new one, being around since 2012.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Jen, much appreciated. And on to Lab Group with Nick. Nick, over to you.
Thanks, Tim. Yeah, look, my name's Nick Bouger. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Lab Group. Lab provides a customer onboarding platform to the financial services industry. I don't like to call it customer onboarding necessarily. We really are a complete end-to-end account opening solution. I'm the co-founder of the business. I started the business about 10 years ago. So for us, we're probably one of the older RegTechs at the table, but I think what that means is experience and robustness as well, and reputation. So yeah, next slide, please, Tim. So LabForm itself, it's actually a single build software as a service platform. So out of the box, it supports all entity types for onboarding. We have automated workflow systems, customized branding. So of course, every implementation of LabForm is branded for the relevant organization. We're a multi-product platform. So when I say account opening, yes, we have AML and KYC at the core of the product, but when you layer on things around that to actually get an account open and trading or funded with an organization, there's a lot more to that than just AML, KYC. So we're a multi-product platform, which basically means that we can support multiple financial products and services through the one implementation. So for example, for Macquarie Bank, one of our customers, you can apply for term deposits, cash management accounts, online trading accounts, and business banking products through the one single build SaaS platform that's branded and customized for Macquarie. Multi-channel, meaning that we can accept applications through APIs for remediation purposes, where you've got 10,000 accounts in a CRM and you may want to push that through the LabForm framework to bulk remediate and re-onboard and rescreen your clients. Multilingual, we deployed across Japan, Europe, Australia, New Zealand, and in Asia as well. So we are a multilingual platform. We're multi-country as well. So we do actually partner with other organizations, some of which are actually RegTechs, in order to plug in and facilitate electronic identity verification across multiple countries and regions. And we do also facilitate, again, through third-party middleware that we connect onto in out-of-the-box integration adapters to facilitate checks for companies, beneficial ownerships, trusts, and SMSFs, and also is the case for PEP and sanctions screening through our middleware. In terms of our platform itself, we're doing ongoing regulatory updates to the platform. So when CRS and FATCA came along, or DDO, we have a single build platform that's deployed across 100 organizations that's just automatically uplifted as compliance regimes drop in the market. So people really outsource that whole kind of compliance implementation to us, because we're just inherently upgrading on our platform along with our regulatory roadmap. And account establishment integrations, which I'll talk to on the next slides. Thanks, Tim. Backend application manager, which enables you to see and manage applications in the platform, and it also allows advisor-led initiation of applications in the market, or initiation via SSO from third-party tools like Xplan Advisor CRMs, for example, to push those client records into the LabForm framework. Next slide, Tim. Yeah, and this is just an example of some of our clients. So what we've done with Lab is as we've implemented in each industry vertical, we've done all the account opening, data capture, customization around the core AML KYC workflow. So what it means is we can very quickly and efficiently spin up sandboxes for the relevant industry vertical in pre-configured sandboxes that suit that particular industry vertical. And then we can simply cookie cut that for other participants of that industry vertical. So making for an extremely efficient end-to-end complex onboarding process. Next slide. So then the next thing is connectivity. So it's all great doing an online form and doing an AML KYC check, but how do I trade on my account? How do I go on to my next step? So we're a single build software as a service with a standardized data model. So what we've done is plugged into a lot of industry participants in the space and other third-party vendors, which allows us to seamlessly create account and account records downstream in relation to that customer or that investor's onboarding journey. And really, our goal is straight through process of account opening, very efficiently deployed across industry verticals, very quickly deployed. We're across about 100 organizations now. Deployments can take us less than a couple of weeks for a very complex end-to-end account opening solution. So yeah, that goes quickly, doesn't it? 5 minutes. The next slide, just finally. Look, that's my QR there. Don't worry, it's not a COVID safe check-in. But yeah, you guys can grab my details from that if you want. And yeah, look forward to hearing from you. Thanks very much, Tim.
That's great, Nick. Thank you. Excellent presentation. Okay, last but not least, Vincent from Verify CloudCheck.
Hi there, thank you, Tim. Hi, my name is Vincent McCartney. I'm one of the co-founders and managing director of Verify, better known by our product name, CloudCheck. Next slide, please. Firstly, about us, I think we're probably the best kept secret in EIV. We have a lot of clients, which we'll come on to in a moment, but a lot of you probably never heard from us, heard about us before, because we generally focus on our product and service and let them speak for themselves, rather than a lot of flash marketing, maybe to our detriment, but it's like the way we operate. We were established in 2012 in New Zealand, specifically for the incoming AML CFT Act back then over here, but we're now actively expanding around the world, including Australia, and different use cases outside of AML as well, including age verification, things like that. Next slide, please. So how big are we? Firstly, because I did make that claim at the beginning there, over 1,000 different reporting entities in New Zealand and Australia currently users, and we've placed twice in the Deloitte's Fast 500 for Asia Pac in 18 and 19. It would have been in 20 as well, but New Zealand didn't make any entries, unfortunately. We can service businesses of all sizes, from one-man bands up to large multinationals, and that's funded by our strong balance sheet and our scalability of our architecture in the background. We're still 100% owned by our New Zealand founders, including myself, and the success over the years has meant that we've not had to raise any capital and actually maintain the ownership so we can drive the business forward as we'd like. Next slide, please. Quick slide on the founders. They probably don't need to look at our faces too long, but there's the four of us anyway. Next slide, please. So firstly, some common misconceptions I hear all the time around electronic ID verification. One, and KYC. Firstly, that KYC is hard. It's so complicated you need to outsource somebody else to do it for you. Or it's expensive, or there's one size fits all and you can have one product, buy it off the shelf and you can start using it. If you've been told any of those things or believe any of those things, then frankly, I think you're doing it wrong and you need to give us a call. Next slide, please. So why have other organizations chose CloudCheck to use for their EIDV? Firstly, ease of integration and intuitive. Our APIs are extremely easy to implement, modern RESTful JSON-based APIs, and our web platform is very intuitive. We do offer training to all of our clients, but most decline it because they've seen the demo and they just run on and just start using it straight away. We have great data integrity. I'll come to in a moment in more detail. We have a good reputation. I'll happily give you any references you like to speak to any existing clients to find out what we're all about and how fair we play. Innovation, we're constantly having releases, weekly, sometimes bi-weekly, on adding new products and services and features to CloudCheck to make sure we're staying ahead of the game and you're getting the best tools available. Flexibility on implementation, data used, and price. I'll come to that more in a moment also. Development side, we'll happily work with you to develop whatever you need fitting with your specific use case. We do this all the time with our customers and deliver really bespoke solutions for them. And then customization as well to make the platform look and feel like you, so you get a nice UX for your clients. Next slide, please. On that data integrity point, we currently have over 30 databases to verify against ID and address, as well as PEP and sanction checks. We're one of only 3 companies who have direct access to the New Zealand government passport data and the Australian government equivalent, the DVS. I'm sure most of you are aware of, and one of 3 companies that has that. We also have access to other data like China, South Africa, and India, and more on the way. We have a robust data vetting process. What that means is that we make sure the data we're getting is fresh and it's all in real time. We don't like secondhand cached information, pre-verified, anything like that. We want to make sure that you're getting the most up-to-date information available all the time. And we also give you the choice over the data you're using. No data is mandatory to the rest of our service. You can choose what data to use and when to use it, so you can control your costs, control your compliance program. Next slide, please. On that flexibility point, on the integration side, as noted, we have a web portal. Yeah, you can use that. You can use our API, SDK, our self-service CloudCheck Go option, which allows you to send a link to your client to self-verify in their own time. The choice is yours. On the data side, there's government ID, address sources, PEP and sanction checks for your screening, bank account verification, and company UBOs. It's up to you which parts you want to use of that. Once again, nothing's forced upon you. We also have biometric options with our homegrown CloudCheck Live product and a third-party CloudCheck Live Pro product. CloudCheck Live is browser-based, Pro is mobile-based. And on the price side, we have a subscription service and a pay-as-you-go service. Whichever is going to suit your particular business, then choose the one that's going to fit. Next slide, please. Customization, quick few examples of some of the branding. On the left-hand side is how Sharesies have branded our biometric solution in their cool designs that they have. On the right-hand side is another one of our customers, BizCap, of how they've branded our platform also. Next slide, please. Some of our customers on the left-hand side there, some of our AML customers, so Lay-by, BizCap, and Sharesies. And on the right-hand side, there are other markets we've expanded into. So for non-AML purposes, so the Ministry of Health in New Zealand users, Victorian government users here in Australia, and New Zealand Lotto also. You can see some large organisations in there. And then next slide, please. Here are my details. If you like to get in touch, my details are on screen here. And thank you for your time.
That's great. Thank you very much, Vincent. Much appreciated. And I think we stayed pretty well to time, Deb, along all of those.
Sorry, just struggling with my microphone. Yes, indeed. Thank you so much. So Tim, perhaps just as we are rounding up the discussion this afternoon, having just seen the 6 or 7 presentations that we just had, what any reflections from you?
Look, it's always the same. I'm always staggered by the entrepreneurship and inventiveness of the people who work in this industry. So many of them have set out to do something, redeployed themselves along the way, and come up with some amazing solutions. Not a one there that you don't look at and say they're fabulous. And they're all doing unique yet integrated things. And for me, all in that effort. I know that everyone's trying to make money and trying to be successful, but they're also all helping us with the effort against financial crime. So that's just, it's fabulous from that perspective. Makes a huge difference. Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I often start a lot of my presentations by talking about people and about protecting people, and say this is about actually your mum and dad, to put it in a personal context. And so all of these great solutions bringing in that layer of trust, but not just that, giving employees tools, real tools beyond a spreadsheet. And I'm sorry, I know we have Microsoft on the line and there's nothing wrong with a spreadsheet, but, actually bringing, giving people real tools to safeguard the system, but, safeguard the people. And I think that was very well said. I want to thank you very, very much for convening today. I think that I always walk away from these feeling very energized, and I can see the potential. So it's very exciting. So thank you very much for that.
if anybody would like to ask a question of the presenters, you can still pop those on the chat, because I'm going to talk just probably for another few minutes. Hopefully it won't be too boring. Look, there's our list of members there. Bathe in that glow for a minute. You can probably go to the next slide. Thank you, Hong. I would like Louis Yee to turn on his camera if he's there. Are you there, Louis? We'll see if he's paying attention. No, maybe not. Is he there, or I just can't see him? In any case, I wanted to call out Louis Yee. Louis Yee has been working with us since June of this year as an analyst, and he's the first analyst that the association has ever had. And he has really been an amazing young talent. And I just wanted to, it's his last day with us today because he has to go back to his real job. He was just on secondment. He's going back to his real job, but I just wanted to say he did such a fantastic job. And if any of you have seen that research report that we've just published, that was pretty much all of Louis's work right there. So I just wanted to do a shout out. Perhaps we don't have him on the line, but just a formal shout out to him. So thanks, Louis, and good luck with your future. Next slide, thanks. I just wanted to leave you with this, because this slide pretty succinctly shows all the things that we're going to be up to in the next, until June next year. This is our strategy, or our priorities until June. And so you can see there's a lot of work to be done. And there's just a little summary there. If you'd like to know more about any of those things, please reach out and talk to us. Next slide, thank you. Here are some of the events that we've got coming up between now and the end of the year. There's quite a bit going on, as you can see. Two things that I wanted to quickly mention to you. We are just about to launch a brand new program, Government as a Buyer of RegTech, which is going to be on the 7th of December this year. So we've actually got a group of government together to actually talk about their RegTech deployments and where they are getting cut through, which is fantastic. And Minister Victor Dominello is going to come and open that for us. He's the New South Wales Minister for Customer Service. And then finally, we have just settled on some dates, which we hope will not change. So you can mark your diaries now for the 5th, 6th and 7th of April 2022 for Accelerate RegTech. Okay, I think that is the last slide, is it not? Yes, it is the thank you slide. Now, what I'm going to do is, we've got a few minutes left. If you would like to stay on the line for our networking, what you can do is turn your microphone, turn your camera on.